Hi, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Liza Meynig. After having spent most of my life on and off the mission field, having been raised in the church, and having gone through my own abusive relationships with men and come out the other side, I've realized one important thing in life. A relationship with God is vital. The problem is that we have a lot of religion and legalism in this world, giving us a long to-do list of what we can and cannot do, especially for us ladies. My goal is to create a safe place for women to come together and have the hard, controversial conversations you might not have been able to have before. I want to provoke some critical thinking. I want to hopefully point you towards the Bible and towards a God that might not have been presented to you before. I want us to leave the religion and the legalism behind and be left with a healthy relationship with God. It's time to become who you were meant to be. It's time to become a warrior.
Welcome back to the Warrior Podcast. I'm Liza. I'm here with one of my very best friends, Whitney Bates. For people who don't know you, will you tell everyone who you are, what you do, what your passion is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Whitney, and I'm on staff at Church 1132, and I'm the missions director there. So I plan and execute trips all over the world, which is very exciting. Mm-hmm. And I'm very passionate about missions, and I love being able to just watch people encounter God and like go all over the world, literally, and just get so touched in a powerful way and come back changed. It's pretty awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I will say I've done several trips under you, and they're amazing. Like, she's amazing. I wanted to bring you on today because I want to talk about health and inner healing. We've been talking a lot about inner healing methods and talking about really spiritual stuff, but I want to take it a little bit lighter and just talk about how simple diet and exercise can change so much about your life. And you are the biggest health person I know.
Thank you.
Like, I don't know anyone who's like you. So when I was planning this, I was like, Whitney's perfect. There's nobody else. So I know that we've clearly talked about this so many times, but I just want to know from you if you can share to our listeners what has been your journey with healing, with health so far?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I started at a very young age, and I'm thankful for that because I learned so much such a long time ago that now I have all of that built upon each other. And so basically at age 13, I found myself a little heavier and just not I don't know. I just felt lethargic and not as light as I know that I could be. And so our church actually went on a diet. It was so funny. And it was called Prism. Not prison, Prism. So felt like prison. But anyway, so basically it was a very restrictive diet, but I love checks and balances. And so we had a little worksheet, and I was just checking how I drank all my water, and I ate the right foods, and I was so excited. And I lost 20 pounds at the age of 13.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, kind of crazy. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, it was like a high. I felt so good, and I just was like, well, let me keep going. Yeah. I think all the adults were like, oh my gosh, shut up. Because I was like, yay, I ate it right today.
They're all like, please, I just want cake.
Literally. So I think from that high, it just developed such a hunger in me to learn more. And I just began to learn. I would get books and read them, man, I got to learn how to treat my body right. We also had a naturopathic doctor at our church as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's
and
really
he
cool.
is my biggest role model to this day, Dr. Matt Angove. And he would answer every question I had because he was so passionate about health. And as he just would just pour little things, little bits of truth in me, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so right. That's so right. We can treat our bodies the way God intended us to treat them. And I don't know, I'm just so thankful for that deposit from Dr. Matt because it all developed into who I am today. Mm-hmm. And so, it just took me on a journey. I mean, I could talk for hours about it. But it started at age 13, and that's where my passion developed for health, and just like realizing that God like entrusted us with these bodies, and that we can take care of them and feel so good and so whole and so healthy. So
yes, and that's like we've talked about before. In my health journey, I thought because I was so skinny, I could eat whatever I wanted and just it would be fine. But I had the worst acne. I had migraines all the time, and I was sick all the time. So finally at 21 was when I started my like health journey, and it was also in the time where I was just super broken anyway. But when I started researching like, oh, I should just simply drink more water or like eat some vegetables, it's shocking like how much energy you feel and how much it like balances out your sleep cycle and the stress levels. And so I love that you started so young. It took me a while. But I know you told me a story several times that I wanted you to tell the listeners about when you ate your like last ice cream.
Yes.
Because I think that's powerful. Like it's funny, but
I
want you to tell them.
Yes. So I used to work at Cold Stone Creamery. So funny.
All the places.
Yeah. Good times. And I just loved health so much. Like I didn't eat the ice cream, and everyone thinks I'm crazy. They're like, what in the world? Like, what? But I used to be the biggest junk food eater ever. So I could always sell a little scoop of ice cream like none other, because I'm like, oh, it tastes so good, because I know what it does to your body as well. And so that's what drove me to changing everything. And so anyways, as I was working, it was my birthday, and I will never forget this, and it's what I shared with Liza. It was cake batter ice cream with gummy bears. And I got it. And I hadn't had sugar in a while, and I ate just a bite, and I remember just like, I don't know, it's almost like I lost taste for it, and as I tasted it, my body instantly was like, what are you doing? And I remember saying, I was just like, I don't ever want to eat this again. And from that day forward is when like it really shifted, because I was just like, whoa. And it was just an epiphany moment for me, like, whoa, I have control over what I eat, and like I can choose healthy foods, and I don't have to choose these poor, foods, and like what really in turn makes me feel sick and all that kind of stuff. So.
I love that you just said that you have control over it, because the excuse that I hear from so many people, and I use this too, is like, well, I didn't grow up in a home that ate healthy, or which I said forever. And actually my biggest excuse was, I'm a poor college student, like ramen noodles and Taco Bell is the thing. And so you kind of do become like a victim to your diet in a sense. Like you allow your diet to happen, and then you don't understand. Like for me, I would have migraines that would put me in bed for days, and I would miss school and work, and that was not helping anyone. So to simply take control back, instead of just saying, well, this is cheap, or this is, whatever, is really powerful.
That's really good,
what made you, like, or let me rephrase this, because you travel quite a bit with your job, doing missions and just hanging out with friends. Like, I know we do girls trips like all the time. But when you're out and you have like a break in routine in a different country or hanging out with friends, how do you maintain your diet practically?
That's a really good question, and it took me a while to figure that balance out. For traveling, there's no like break in health, like, oh, I'm gonna go on a trip, and then when I get back, I'm going to start this. There's no starting. We should start today. And that's what I always had to tell myself. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a diet that we just get on board with, because that will never last. So when I travel, I plan accordingly. So I went through phases of being overly obnoxious with my stuff, like packing every single thing and every snack and getting made fun of. And
and people are going to make fun of you. Like, no matter what.
Get ready.
But when you're 80 and healthy.
Oh, exactly. Yes, you can take it. Practically for traveling, like as far as like, something that you're using an airplane, like a location that you have to use an airplane, I would pack little like trail mix, or like just really snacks that obviously won't go bad and smell up the whole plane, like a boiled egg. Don't do that.
Don't put that in your suitcase.
Don't do that. But yeah, I just had to learn the balance, and then you just have to not be as hard on yourself, because I feel like people, like when you're traveling, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm off the wagon, I'm just gonna eat everything in sight, you know, like eat out every meal. But like, you can make wise choices, and let this be hope to you. Like literally, like you don't have to jump off the bandwagon when you're traveling.
Yeah.
So you're at a restaurant and you don't know what to eat. Choose vegetables, choose meat. Don't stress about like, oh, okay, well, if I choose this, I'm just gonna go down the drain, and my health is gonna go down the drain. No, like, don't be as hard on yourself, but also give yourself grace, you know? So for me, I always choose, you know, like, okay, what thing has vegetables? What thing has a meat? A good, you know, healthy meat. If you're vegetarian, obviously other choices. But for me, it's just like not overthinking, you know? And like, I struggled with that for a while of like, oh my gosh, what did they put in this? What ingredients are in this? And then I'm like, forget it. I'll just get, you know, the pizza. Who cares, you know? And then you eat the whole thing because you're like, well, might as well. But you had to learn that balance. So I would say, to summarize all of that, pack, you know, little snacks with you so that you don't choose the bad options. And there's no bad food. That's a whole nother topic. But I would say, pack those healthy foods so that you have access to them, and then you're not hungry for choosing something else, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
And I feel like, too, when everyone's in their own journey, you find things that you are really, like, focusing on to learn about. So like for me, for a really long time, I was into reading the ingredients for everything. And I did like go through the same thing of like, oh my gosh, what's in this? And I can't eat that. And so what I finally started doing when I found myself obsessing about ingredients was I just picked several ingredients where I was like, I for sure am not going to eat this. And I know this sounds weird, but I picked canola oil because canola oil is actually terrible for you. And then like I looked up, you don't have to do this, but I looked up certain certain chemicals that are put in foods, and I thought, okay, if it starts with the C, I'm not going to eat that. And so I would just look for those and be like, okay, for sure not that. And then you start to get a feel for foods that don't have it, and then you can move on to the next thing. So I had to kind of break it down so that I wasn't getting stressed about being healthy.
Right, exactly.
Because it's a lot.
That's so good. Yeah, it is a lot, and it's overwhelming. You know, I think a lot of people throw in the towel just because they're like, it's too much, and that's what we'll get into, I'm sure. But like, it is overwhelming.
And especially for people who like travel a ton, whether it's missions or for work, when you're on the airplane and you're not prepared with little snacks, and it's like, well, sure, I'll eat the pretzels or whatever. And then I think so many people with everything in life can go down the drain of, well, I'm here, I might as well. And if you can just, again, like you were saying, give yourself grace to, okay, I ate the cake, but then I'm gonna go to Juice Bar. I'm kind of obsessed with Juice Bar.
Same.
But so shameless plug. We love you. But like I'm gonna go to Juice Bar and just like balance it out, or drink a lot of water later. Like there are things you can do so you're not just falling down. And giving up. So what are health benefits that you've seen in your life versus when you were just kind of eating whatever you wanted?
So number one is water. Like drinking water is so important, and as you do it, like, I mean, there are so many benefits on water. I would challenge you to Google that because you can just read for days, but it definitely helps your skin, and it just literally, it changes a lot. And then sleep is huge. And oh man, I found for my own life personally, like, it sounds funny, like you wouldn't think of sleep being one of those contributors of like to health, but like for
it's
real,
massive.
It's massive. And so I found that for me is like getting as much as possible, obviously not sleeping through the day, but the earlier you go to bed and the earlier you wake up, that's what I found. But everyone's different too, you know, like find what works for you. But I would definitely recommend sleep. And then as far as food goes, oh man, I would say processed foods is one thing, just to eliminate as much as you can and focus on whole foods. Not the store. Well, that too. But
that's awesome.
That's
we
great.
love you too.
Yes. But just whole foods, like you cannot go wrong with that. Literally, you know. And if it is not in a box, like you can trust that it's healthy, like it's good, and that's an easy way to think about it, you know, because it does get overwhelming, like we said, of just like, I don't even know where to start. But it's like, okay, ask yourself, is this a whole food? Like, can I pick this from a tree, you know, or will it be, you know, coming up out of the ground? Like, those are good questions to ask, you know?
Yes. And I would say, too, like, and I know this is everywhere. Tons of people have said this, but start... If you can shop on just the outside aisles, that's amazing. And just try to, like, challenge yourself to do that, because it's like the more you go into the aisles, the more processed your food is going to be.
It's good.
And, like, one thing I did, I had a really weird obsession with Dr. Pepper. And then I got kidney stones.
Jesus, help her.
So I know. Lord. And so I finally had to just, like, start there, because I know there are probably a lot of listeners who are like, okay, I love Diet Coke, or I have this energy drink that I love. But if you would just start, like, keep a tally, keep a track somehow of how much you're drinking. People have sticky notes in their car. I had one. But keep track somehow of, like, how much you typically have in a week, and then set a goal of, like, okay, maybe I drink 10 Diet Cokes in a week. This week I'm only going to do 5. And then when 5 becomes, like, easy, then go, like, I'm going to do 2 a week, and then you're done. So I think process of elimination is also really good, too.
That's really good advice,
And just, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, and I wish we could, talk about this forever. Maybe we'll do, like, a part 2 soon.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what would you say if there is a listener who has a lot of health problems and maybe they don't eat healthy, but they don't know where to start? What would you say would be the first thing to start?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would just say to start with something small. So I would choose one thing that is detrimental to your health. So, like, whether it be, you know, if it's a Diet Coke, or, like, one thing that you're like, I know this is bad, and then doing, like, the tally, that's a great idea. Or,
thank you.
Yes, killing it. But use something so you can get some victories, because each victory is going to lead into another one. So I feel like a lot of times we get stuck down here when we can be up here with just feeling like defeat in the area of health, because it's just so overwhelming. I don't know what to do. So I would pick one thing, whether it be a meal that you're like, I'm just going to do dinners as healthy as I can make, a home-cooked meal. So I would say eliminating eating out would be probably the biggest one. That's really hard, and I know you don't want to hear it, but you don't know what's in that food, and it could it could be a huge hindrance to how you could be living. So I would say just choose one meal and start there, or one item, you know, whether it be the Diet Coke, whether it be like, every night I eat a Snickers, you know, try to eliminate that, and then give yourself some wins, and then see what happens.
I like that. I think that's very practical. And it's also, it makes things easy to, like, go by your conviction.
Yes.
That's another thing I tell people too with food is, like, just go with the thing that you feel the most shame about, even, because there are so many people who eat tons of candy or drinks tons of sodas, and they know that it's wrong and it's bad, but then there's this weird, like, shame about it. And so I'm like, go with your conviction, go with what you know is, like you said, really bad for you, and then just say, okay, we're gonna cut this off, and then, like, take another step forward. And it has,
that's
like,
so good.
I know you've been through this process most of your life. I started almost 10 years ago now, but it's been even 10 plus years have come to, like, leaps and bounds, and now I'm so big on eating as whole foods as you can, but still, like, I still eat cake sometimes, and I have grace for myself. So
it's a journey. It's a definite journey, and nobody's perfect.
Right.
I have had moments, you know, that I be like, you know, like, we are not perfect, and it's a journey, like I said, so you're learning along the way. So exactly what you said, give yourself grace. Like, don't go off the bandwagon just because you ate a piece of cake. Like, don't do that.
Yes. And people are going to make fun of you, but I will say, like you, we've all been out so many times, and whether it's restaurants or at somebody else's house or whatever, and there's all kinds of sweets. And I feel like you do the best job at just you don't say anything or make comments to condemn people for eating what they're eating, and you'll just kind of quietly just drink water and then go home and eat your own meal later, or just have a bowl of veggies, or and I watch you just like quietly set an example and not cave to what other people are saying. So I would also encourage people, like, when you start to make shifts, people are gonna for sure make comments, but it's fine. Just your health is the thing that's important.
Totally.
So, just a couple more things before we go here. What are some resources, if any, that you would recommend to give people?
Yes. So one book that really changed my life is called Intuitive Eating, and you can Google that. It is literally the most challenging book, but it really just sticks with the basics. You know, it sticks with the basics, and it talks a lot about our mind, and our mind is a huge contributor to everything that we are walking through in our health. Because our mind is powerful, you know, and if you want a piece of cake and you're focused on the piece of cake, you will eat the piece of cake. So you have to learn how to change and shift your mind and ask yourself, the biggest thing in health is we have the choice. And what do we choose? If I'm looking at a piece of cake, since we're using that as an example, and I ask myself, do I want to face the repercussions of what happens when I eat this cake? Do I want that? I get to choose. So it's not saying, no, I will never have cake again, but it's giving yourself, like, the choice, you know? And I think we all live off of choice. Like, we thrive under a free, like, yes, I want to know if I can have it, you know? And if you're on a diet, that is scary, because you tell yourself, no, 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 no. And then when you say yes, you're off limit. And yes. So you don't want that, and you don't want to do that to your body. So I would say, like, definitely give yourself that choice for sure. And I totally got off on a tangent.
No, I love it.
Question.
I don't remember anymore, but I feel like that was really good.
Resources. There we go.
Resources.
Yes. Intuitive eating. It talks about listening to your body, stopping when you're full, actually listening, and not just going overboard, you know?
Yes. And I will put that in the show notes for people to click on a link, and then it'll take you to that book as well. So
really helpful.
Yeah, because I haven't read it myself, but I've heard about it, and I should probably read it.
It changed my life, that's for sure. I should read it again. Just get a little refresher.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out. Like, I love that you came here today, and I wish our time was longer, but guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and just know that you can for sure come on and comment, like this, subscribe to this. If you want to find me on social media, can they find you on social media and ask you a question? Sure, why not?
Whitjoy. At Whitjoy.
At Whitjoy is her handle, so hopefully you don't get weird stalkers now.
Oh dear. Don't stalk me.
But you can ask questions, because this is a place where we want to have community, and we want people to have discussions, and there might be people out there who are beginners and don't know where you're going to start and how to make that first step, and there might be some of you who are super big health nuts like we are, really how Whitney is, so you can provide some other advice as well. So we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Have a good day. Thanks.